good to go. So hello, everyone. I'm Dan Reichert, and I'm an architect solutions engineer here at Sumo Logic. And today I wanted to go through with you all how the Sumo Logic application observability platform will help you out and why it's important. So we'll be going through a quick and effective troubleshooting scenario using our service map, traces, and logs to demonstrate one use case for how you could use the power of Sumo Logic. And then we're going to go ahead and go into our global intelligence service for Kubernetes and how we can help our customers not only quickly troubleshoot applications, but also optimize them to continuously improve their application as it grows and it increases in complexity. Now, a little bit about observability. Observability requires rich data, but it also requires richer analytics to perform properly to get them from the alert to the resolution. This can be explained through this iceberg that we're seeing right here, where as we go deeper into our application, we're increasing the telemetry that you need to look to find a resolution. As your metrics are, excuse me, are your metrics getting you that quick MTTI with the unified alerts? And once identified, you want to diagnose it. And this is where the logs and the traces are going to come in to give you that contextual information really around what is happening. And finally, you're going to want to troubleshoot what you found. We want to look at the logs. We want to know that detailed information to really find that root cause and get things resolved as quickly as possible. And Sumo Logic is going to be able to receive all types of data to help out with this, including logs, metrics, and traces to analyze, correlate, and give you that end-to-end view that we're looking to get out of this. Now, as your application grows in complexity, you're going to be producing far more data and telemetry, and you're going to need a platform that's going to be able to scale as your application also scales. And as mentioned, Sumo Logic is going to be able to pull in all different types of that machine data, and that data is going to be securely ingested through various methods. And then it's going to be tagged and categorized to allow you to pivot around to different data sets for when an event occurred. Now, I know a few people might be focusing on here and might be thinking like, this is it. This is nowhere near an exhaustive list at all of what we're able to integrate with or what we're able to provide insights into. So I definitely recommend to go to sumologic.com and check out all the different integrations and services we're able to work with there, or potentially reach out to your account representative as well to give you a hand at that. So our goal with Sumo Logic Observability is to provide a user-friendly experience and common query language to query across all your data sets. We'll also provide these integrations and out-of-the-box applications and dashboards. And this is important because your systems, they're going to need to be monitored because they're rapidly changing. And you want to spend more time managing your system instead of the tools that run those systems. So the out-of-the-box dashboards and the content is going to reduce the setup time you may typically encounter for similar types of tools. Importantly, the microservice auto discovery is going to allow you to discover these new infrastructures, containers, and services as they become visible and available in your system. The final important thing to really note on this slide is that because Sumo Logic is a multi-tenant platform, we can really leverage these analytics across all the different data sets to give you that the golden signal benchmarks. You can see that how your system is performing compared to the benchmarks across the spectrum. And you're going to see that later on in the demo in the global intelligence service. And I do recommend, again, reach out to the account representative to talk a little bit deeper about these pillars and how they could apply to your organization. So let's go ahead and jump into a live experience of the application observability solution. So to start this off, let's give a little bit of a background on it. Let's suppose we have an application and it's utilizing load balancers, a payment service, and multiple deployments integrated into, in this case, an RDS database. And it's all hosted in AWS using Kubernetes. And everything seems to be going pretty well for the most part, most of the time. However, at 3 a.m., we got this alert telling us of an error with our SLO that that threshold has been hit. And being that this is occurring in a payment service, that's a pretty critical one that we can't waste any time resolving. With a payment service down, that means lost revenue. So we don't want to waste any of that time there. But what we are seeing in this alert right here is that we have a playbook that's attached to it. That if we go ahead and we click this right here, it's going to bring us into dashboard directly over in Sumo Logic, so we could start this investigation to really understand why our payment service is down. So I'm going to go ahead and switch slides here just a little bit. We're going to go ahead and jump over into Sumo, and this would potentially be that dashboard that gets pulled up when we click on that alert. And right away in this dashboard, we're going to be able to see the rates of errors with an outlier attached to it. And the outlier is going to be a way to dynamically set thresholds on rates. And it's going to highlight the points that fall out of the threshold that are important to me, the things that I need to know about, and when something is not normal and I need to drill into that. The outlier is pretty simple to set up. It's really just one line that you'll throw onto your query, and it's going to generate this outlier for you. So definitely recommend check out outliers and how they could help you out there. But now we want to go ahead and go a little bit deeper. We need more context around this other than that there is a spike in errors. So what we are seeing is that, one of the most important things about this is that it is impacting our customers. And we could come down to here and we're pulling the insights and the data into this to see which of our customers are affected on this. How is it affecting our business? The important things that we need to be addressing on this. And, at this point, we might, while we're trying to resolve this issue, we might reach out to some of our customers and let them know of this outage and that we are working on this to get it back up as soon as we can. But more importantly to us as well is the transaction volume. We could see that drop in the transaction volume that took place when we had that error spike happening. We're also seeing that our dollar revenue has completely plummeted. Again, that, like I pointed out in the beginning there, that is a really important thing that we just cannot be letting go by too long there. So again, we want to get that up and running and get right back to where we were on our transactions and revenue. So a little bit deeper, we're going to go down to our error rates by pods. And when we look at this, we're going to see a breakdown of all our different pods that we have in our system. And it's going to be nice and color coded for us to see everywhere from green to yellow to red to let us know pods that they're good and they're healthy, pods that might have a little bit of issues in them, or pods that are just completely messed up and we really need to figure out why they're breaking like that. We could go ahead and we could select one of those red pods right there. And from here, we could actually select some ways to drill down and pull up the logs from that pod. But we could also go to our entities right here. And we could go ahead and get more information around the different components and the different metrics that we're seeing on those components, and giving us other ways that we could potentially drill down and pull up related information for that pod. Now, what we also see going on in here is that it isn't just one pod that's having these issues. It's across multiple pods that's happening in here. So we know that it's not just one that we want to focus on. We need to get a little bit higher level. We might need to look more at our application-centric point of view. And to do that, we're going to go ahead and use a service map. Now, the service map is going to allow us to look at the service and all the interdependencies in our services. We could see that our payment service is calling our account service and linking up to our database on here. We could see how everything else is all interconnecting on here. But for us right now, we want to figure out why is our payment service and our accounts having these issues on this. So let's go ahead and drill into our accounts. We're going to go ahead and select the accounts on here. And again, we're going to have these high-level metrics around the accounts. When we go ahead and drill in deeper on this, all we have to do at this point is we could just go ahead and hit open in and select any number of ways that we want to drill into, in this case, our account service. But specifically for right now, we want to pull up the traces on our accounts to really see what is causing these errors. Is there anything that's really standing out to us to figure out why our payment service is down? So we're going to go ahead and hit traces, and that's going to then pull us up the traces for our account service in here. And we could see a bunch of important information like the operation names, when the traces took place, how long the duration is taking on it, and some other information that's pretty self-explanatory around it. But most importantly is that we want to now, we want to get a bit deeper on this. We don't want to look at everything. We want to look at the ones that are having high rates of errors. So we're simply going to come up to here and we're going to filter down to our number of errors where there's a high rate of errors going on, and pull up only those traces. And again, we can now see that when we go into this, that we're able to see that from that root service to the payment service, and we could see all the errors that are taking place in those. And we could even have a nice color-coded breakdown of what's involved in each one of these traces. So let's go ahead and focus on one of these traces in here. So to do that, I'll just go ahead and grab any one of these. And when I pull that up now, we're going to see all the spans that took place in that trace. It's going to go from the parent query all the way down to the child query on here. And if you notice, just above each one of these spans, there's a little red line on there. Let's go ahead and just hide these and make it a little bit more obvious. But these red lines, these are actually indicating to us that there is an error in here, or at least down to one of the child query spans, there is an error in there as well. So as we can see, it is going all the way down to this CRUD repository find by ID operation going on. Again, we're just going to go ahead and select that one. And it's going to provide us information around what that span is, what the associated trace is. We could grab any of that information that we might need. Again, drill down into the logs if we need to on there. But we could also go over into the metadata tab and see all the different components of our Kubernetes infrastructure that's associated with that span. But in this case, we want to go to that entities tab again. And from here, we actually want to go down to that account service container where we're seeing these issues. We're going to pull that up again, see the high level metrics around the account service. But for now, we want to go ahead and open up the logs for that one. And now when we do this, we're going to see that we have 967 messages. Again, we're crunched for time. We have to figure this out right away. Sure, we could scroll through here, take some notes if we'd like, but we don't want to do that. We want to make this as easy as possible. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and simply hit log reduce. And what log reduce is going to do is it's going to take those hundreds of messages, sometimes thousands of messages, and it's going to end up summarizing those messages into a few patterns in just a couple seconds. So in this example, we now took those 967 messages and we reduced it down in just 7 seconds to just 11 patterns that we now have to look at. So before, instead of having 39 pages to be looking through alone on there, it's just now one page to be looking at. And we can see right away, right here on the top, that, that there is this one pattern that's going on that's pretty much telling us that there's been an increase in connections to our database, and we should go ahead and raise that limit on there so that the connections could be established. So we've just gone through one example of going from an alert from certain metrics, able to understand visually in our dashboard the breadth of the issue. You can see specifically where the errors are occurring and drill down to the traces and logs to find that root cause of the issue in just a couple of minutes. I'm going to jump back over here now so we can go ahead and now move over into our global intelligence for Kubernetes service. Sorry, solution. And now we've gone through, we have gone through how we could troubleshoot an outage. We want to look further now into how we could optimize our systems to manage the risk and other things in the future in the context of your Kubernetes application. For this, we're going to go ahead and use this global intelligence for Kubernetes solution. So when we're talking Kubernetes, we know all about needing to properly allocate resources and the fine line between being over-provisioned and under-provisioned, where over-provisioning means that you're potentially having unnecessary and avoidable costs, while under-provisioning may result in an outage of your system, like we just saw previously. What we have found in across the board here is that 80% of containers are unoptimized for CPU and 86% are unoptimized for memory. And when setting those configurations, it's nearly impossible to know appropriately what is the right answer for provisioning. And even then, that number may change regularly due to the scale of your application. So with Sumo Logic, we're going to be able to provide a global intelligence service for Kubernetes to understand how to optimize for a few scenarios for performance or for cost. So the way that we're going to do this is by doing an analysis of 8 days across 8 days of analysis across approximately 17 million containers that we've profiled since mid-November 2020. And with this information, we can apply it to your deployment to be able to give you recommendations for how you're deploying your Kubernetes application. So again, let's go ahead and jump back into our environment in here. And now we want to pull up our Explorer view. And in here, we see all of our different clusters. But for now, we want to check out that my demo environment in here, that demo cluster. And in particular, we are concerned with the mobile banking namespace. And even further, that account service deployment. And remember, that was the one that was giving us those issues. So once we get into this, we're going to be presented with an overview of our deployment. We could see that we have a bunch of errors happening in here, but we already knew about that. We already got that resolved. So we're not overly concerned with that anymore. We want to figure out, how do we prevent this in the future? How do we really make sure that we're optimized and not having these 3 a.m. calls anymore? So to do that, we're simply going to go into our dashboard up here and select our summary of our Kubernetes deployments. And that's going to present us with information around our optimization, where if we look at this, we could see, excuse me, we'll be able to see information around our current memory slack, what our current risk might be at, and other important metrics as well around our deployment. Now, while this is helpful for us, we do want those recommendations. We do want to see how we can make this better. So we're going to get deeper on this, and instead, we're now going to go into our detail for Kubernetes deployment. And again, we're going to get some information around that, but we're going to go all the way down to the bottom. And in particular, we're going to see these panels right down here. It's really telling us, what do we want to optimize? What should be optimized with those recommendations from that global intelligence service. And as I mentioned previously, this is all done by the profiling of all those millions of containers that we've done over time, and comparing it against how your application runs. So with that, I do want to summarize what we covered today. First, Sumo Logic is going to allow you to correlate your data across all the various data sets from your cloud platform down to your Kubernetes solution. And it's going to bring it all together with a service map that we were looking at previously to see the traces behind it, to understand why you're having these outages at the times you don't want those outages to be happening, which, obviously outages, you never want them to happen. But we're doing that in such a short amount of time. And then to follow up with that, we could then go through and see how we could optimize our system for to make sure to be a bit more preventative around it, using that global intelligence service to help out with the cost and the performance optimizations. So with that, I thank you for your time, and I'm going to go ahead and open it up for questions. see a question about how is it deployed. So basically, the Kubernetes solution is deployed out through typically through a Helm chart that is going to set up a combination of FluentBit and FluentD and Prometheus to pull in all your logs and metrics and traces starting, it's going to tag it from everything from your cluster to your deployment, all the way down to the pod and the namespace, the pod and the container, to allow you to correlate them all together. And then the traces, we're actually using OpenTelemetry to bring traces in. We aren't doing anything proprietary around that. It is the industry standard that will allow you to easily use that and use that open source community to pull in the traces into Sumo. Any other questions at all? Right, and definitely do suggest again to as we put over there in the chat there, feel free to join our public Slack, which is slack.sumologic.com. If you do want to get a deeper dive into this, feel free to reach out to the sales@sumologic.com as well for any additional questions. And you can also go ahead and go to sumologic.com to sign up for a trial and start playing around with some of the stuff that we saw today. So again, thank you for your time. Have a great day.